Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Football Palestine Extra, where we break down everything that's happened this week in the world of Palestinian football. Some points of procedure, some housekeeping that I want to get out of the way at the beginning of this recording. We gave away our Palestine jersey. There was a competition trying to drive subscriptions. We were successful in doing that. Got up to 30 paid subscriptions. So thank you for everyone who subscribed. Congratulations to Ahmed Husseini who won the raffle. We're going to do another giveaway soon. So please keep subscribing. We're just about 1,000 subscribers. So if you are subscribed, and probably if you're listening to this video or listening to this recording, I should say, you probably are, but consider sharing Football Palestine with people who might be interested. It really helps me out. Other things I want to discuss before delving into the topics of this week. You might have realized that these videos are now available on Spotify. If you didn't know that, check out Spotify. If you are a premium subscriber, you can watch all the recordings in their entirety. If you are a free subscriber, I believe you would be able to see whatever is in front of the paywall. So the previews that are 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes long, depending on the length of the recording, are available for you on Spotify as well. I thought it'd probably be convenient because it's the most listened podcast platform out there. And if you're using it, you probably want to have Football Palestine inside the app and not, floating over at Substack, especially since I think a good chunk of my subscribers join Substack just to get the emails. So that's for the housekeeping. I think we've kind of covered all those points. The other things I want to cover this week. So, look, we're speaking in the aftermath of Wissam Abu Ali doing something fantastic at the Club World Cup, a perfect hat trick, something nobody has done before. Nobody has scored three goals, one with their head, left foot, and right foot before in the history of this competition, even when it was, a more sensible 4 or 8 team competition. He is the first non-European player to score a hat trick against the European team since Pelé did it way back in the 1960s, I believe. So great for him. Obviously, fantastic celebration there, hitting the Handala pose after his second goal, I believe. We're going to talk more about Wissam later, probably next week, because I'm starting to hear transfer murmurs. And I had this inkling that if Wissam could go to this tournament and make a name for himself, especially against Porto, then things would start to reach ahead because he scored a crazy amount of goals in a year and a half in Egypt. And, that doesn't go unnoticed. And then to kind of just double down and destroy Porto's defense like that, it's definitely going to help drive the price up. And we can discuss, I think, the dynamics of the transfer market next week, where we'll have more transfer news to talk about. Right now, we only have the transfer of Wajdi Napan to Wahdat to talk about, and if we wait a week, we probably will have a couple more things to discuss. So we're going to table that discussion for now, and what we're going to focus on is refereeing. We're going to discuss specifically refereeing in Palestine's 16 World Cup qualifiers. And the reason I'm doing this is because we have yet to receive any communication from FIFA or the AFC in regards to the official protest the Palestine Football Association lodged against Mahmoud Bunyadifard and Alex King, who was running the VAR in the Oman game. And that, leads to more questions. And the reason why I want to bring this up is not to complain. Look, if a proper investigation is made and a technical explanation, full breakdown as to why that penalty was awarded to Oman with 30 seconds to go in the game could be given, I'll accept it. And we all have to accept it. And we know that 99% of the time, you don't get your way when you lodge protests against FIFA, the AFC, and its officiating. But 1% of the time, it does work. And we discussed this in previous recordings and previous articles I wrote. There are multiple examples one in Asia, quite prominent. People who have followed Asian football for a long time, like myself, will remember what happened in 2006 World Cup qualifying when the referee made an error in the Uzbekistan Bahrain playoff game, where he just awarded a free kick when he should have awarded a retake of a penalty. Uzbekistan felt that they should have won that game 2-0. They wanted to be awarded a 3-0 win. That didn't happen. A replay took place. It actually didn't work out for them, but FIFA did order a replay. More recently, in 2018 World Cup qualifying, Senegal, South Africa, the referee was found to be compromised. He gave a complete phantom penalty in that game. And because he was found to be compromised, I think it was on the take from betting syndicates, they actually ordered a replay of that game, which Senegal eventually won. And when they had lost that game initially, their World Cup qualifying hopes had taken a huge hit. So being able to kind of recoup those 3 points did put them on their way to qualifying for the 2018 World Cup finals in Russia. So, all that said, here's what we're going to do right now. I went into SofaScore, which I believe gets their data from Opta, and looked at what the referees did in the 16 games. We're going to focus on the final 10, the games of the third round, but I'm going to touch a little bit on the second round because I think the second round makes my point quite well, which is you can't really complain about getting fouls awarded against you or being shown yellow cards or even red cards if you're a dirty team, or maybe not dirty is maybe a strong word. If you're a rough team, if you're a team that goes into the tackle a lot, obviously you're going to get more fouls awarded against you, which means more yellow cards, which means possibly expulsions. From the 6 games that Palestine played against Lebanon, Australia, and Bangladesh, they were awarded, or they received, I should say, 9 yellow cards. The opposition received 18. So that should tell you something. If we break it down by game, there was no game in which Palestine received more yellow cards than the opposition. The one kind of exception to that rule is the away game in Bangladesh. Each team received 4 apiece, but Amin Mahajan was shown a double yellow, so he was sent off late in that game. But otherwise, Lebanon away, 0 yellow cards for Palestine, 2 for Lebanon. Australia, which was played in Kuwait City, 1 yellow card apiece. Bangladesh also played in Kuwait City, 1 yellow card apiece. I thought the yellow card that I believe it was Amin Mahajan picked up late in the game was a little bit soft, but we won't get into that. Palestine won that game 5-0. Away to Bangladesh, just mentioned, 4 apiece, plus the red card for a double yellow to Palestine. Lebanon, which was hosted in Doha, 3 yellow cards to Palestine, 7 to Lebanon. And then the final game, which was a dead rubber, played in Perth, 1 yellow card to Palestine, 3 to Australia. Again, this was another game that had some slightly controversial decisions because there was no VAR. And it seemed like maybe some of the goals could have been offsides. Maybe one of the penalties was a little bit soft, what have you. But it was a dead rubber. We're not really going to get into it. Australia also deserved the win. Like, I didn't think that Palestine was on the short end of the stick. 5-0 was kind of a weird scoreline, but a dead rubber. The only thing I want to say is I think I've made my point. Palestine were not a team, even when they played against Australia, who are, stronger than them. They didn't receive more yellow cards than Australia did. They didn't play in a rough manner. They weren't this team that was desperate to win, and they had to do everything, and they weren't going to have a lot of the ball, so they had to end up fouling. This is just not the team. It's not the profile of the team we're talking about now. Opta didn't have the detailed stats, so I don't know how many tackles were recorded in the game's fouls as opposed to yellow cards. But I think just looking at the yellow cards received by Palestine and the opposition in round 2 over 6 games, you can confidently say this isn't a team that is rough or dirty between, I use the air quotes for that. They just aren't. So if you go into the final 10 games, this is where I think things get a little bit interesting. And let me preface this by saying I actually didn't have a problem with the refereeing in a lot of these games. Okay. We'll start off with the first game against Korea. 14 tackles recorded by Palestine, 9 by the Koreans. Fouls, 12-7. I think this pretty much shows that Fagani let the game flow. And, when he felt like it was a bit too much, he did show fouls. He showed fouls. He whistles for fouls at an equal rate, 12 out of 14 for Palestine. So 14 of the tackles, 12 of them were fouls. 7 fouls, 9 tackles for Korea. I think that's completely fair. The yellow cards, yeah, it's a little bit disproportionate. It's 5-1. But if you actually look at what Palestine picked up yellow cards for, I think 1 was for time wasting and 2 were for protest. So completely fine. I thought Fagani did a good job. There's a reason why he's considered one of the best in Asia. Again, you might go back to that Iraq-Jordan game at the Asian Cup. I think once we got